I've added onto the front page of the class a link for streaming information, just in case, later on down the line you decide to go and stream the class. So remember, you can watch us here. Let's check this link. I haven't done this yet. So go to this website and you can find us right there. BCST 110. That would create like a cosmic feedback loop.
Let's watch it.
I may just disappear because I can't do that. But that's where you go. All right. I don't know why I can't. I'm not, I'm unlike Brian, I'm not born to perform. I don't actually even thrill to the idea of being up here on camera, but hey, whatever. So I don't want to watch the stream, but you guys can by going there. And then you can also get archived video on the EATV YouTube page, which I don't have a link on that yet, but probably you can find it, or I'll definitely put a link there. And for those of you watching on cable or have cable TV, on channel 27, we actually have a slot Friday mornings at 10:30 a.m. You could even tune into this class on TV, okay? So if you're particularly brilliant, let your friends know, and they can all, or your family, I guess. Usually people who have cable TV is because they're older, so maybe your parents or friends of your parents, right? Who has cable TV at our age, your age?
I don't have it because my boyfriend's dad works for Comcast.
Oh, okay. So when you have dinner, does he like have half an hour? No, you definitely can't drop cable. No, you definitely can't. I tried to drop cable, and it's like you get on the phone with them, and it's like, well, what if we give you 4 more channels will you stay then? And you just can't get out of Comcast. It's crazy. What a business. So we got a textbook. You all know we have a textbook that you should be trying to procure. I have bought 2 copies to put in the library, all right? So I'm actually, I realized I have to teach a class tonight that I didn't know I have to teach, so I can't run over with these. I brought them. I was going to take them over, but next week they'll be available in the library for checkout for, I think, 2.5 hours it is at Rosenberg. Maybe it's 2 hours. Enough time to read the chapter from the textbook. If you don't want to buy it or rent it, you can go over there and get it on reserve. Nick, question?
Are they in the bookstore too?
I didn't actually go look, but I told them about it months ago. Yeah. Yeah, the bookstore is expensive, I gotta say.
If you actually have EOPS, it's free.
That's why I always say to people, if someone's paying for your textbooks, go for it. If you're renting, you might find a better rental deal. What you guys said, Chegg last class, right? Yeah. Right. I got to give you one too, and I do. Where are they? Make sure this is 110. Yeah. There you go. So same thing. Fill in the last page just with the right, and then. Sheeta, you also wanted to add, right? Yeah. Did you get a syllabus last class? And you filled in like a... Okay, cool. So everybody else is good. They've done the paperwork thing, right? Okay. Good. Okay. What else did I want to say? I didn't see her. If anyone is just getting used to Canvas or something, it's a pretty essential part of what we do just because we're coordinating everything through Canvas, and so I'd be happy, not after class today, but maybe before class next week to help you out with that. And there's also Student Services is providing some help with Canvas too. We can find out for you if that's something you'd like to do, is to learn Canvas with their help. For those of you who are taking advantage of streaming, we're asking folks to join us by chat so that we can relay their comments and such. So far we have Nika, Solo, and Garrett have joined us by chat. They're streaming this. So great. When you guys stream, please just log into chat if you're live streaming, and hopefully we won't forget about you, and we'll listen to your comments, or I'll relay them, so you can participate that way. Awesome. So just for Garrett and folks joining us, I'm sorry, not Garrett, for Brian and It's Ryan, right? Yeah, for Brian and Ryan, because you didn't get the whole spiel last class. Although you can come to the class streaming, there are dates in the syllabus where you actually have to be here. Yeah, and the idea of that is that we're all doing some writing, and on those days we're going to be reading back what we write. So it's good that you're here and you hear what everybody does, and you get a chance to read your own to us and stuff. So those dates are in the syllabus. Otherwise, everybody's sort of free to attend by streaming if they want. All righty, so clicking through to modules, because that's how this whole thing is organized. Today we were going to talk about some ideas out of Chapter 1, which I think it's called Know Your Audience, and it basically talks about the importance of writing for an audience. So although we might all start off writing for ourselves, hopefully it's always going to be rewarding. In writing for the media, typically you're writing for an audience, for a group of people who may not be exactly like you. And we want to know what they're like, in a sense, in order to be successful at writing for them. So there's a bunch of topics in the chapter. Let's just see what comes up here with this PowerPoint. Never that happy with PowerPoint. Yeah, sort of the interesting topics today break down into two parts. Number one is the importance of and the ways, some of the ways that we know our audience when we're writing for them in electronic media writing. And then the other is some ideas about news values, about what seems to interest audiences, what concerns, what will help you figure out like how to craft better writing for those audiences. So kind of breaks down in those two ways. And so first up, this idea about serving an audience and defining an audience. Oh gosh, sorry. Now I see what's going on. I'm projecting what I'm supposed to be seeing over here. How does that work? So let me just see. Do we have anyone who's competent with PowerPoint that could help me out on this faster? There. But now I see it here, so I can actually read it. My problem is solved. Thanks. Thank you. Oh, gosh. All right. Defining an audience used to be a simpler task, I guess. I'm thinking about particularly in television stations and old school broadcasting. So I was working for a variety of different television stations. But so they would define their audience. What they would know about their audience would be based on the geographic location. Like you're broadcasting, you have a license to work here in the Bay Area, so you're going to broadcast to a particular, population that is researched and is known. So you could know your audience that way. But with the internet, the issue is you've got much more narrow slices of audience, much more concentrated than old school broadcasting, where you might, television, for instance, whoops, we're getting a lot of people chatting here. Television would typically, try to cover the 800,000 or 900,000 people who could get TV in the Bay Area without kind of differentiating that. Versus now, you're likely to work for more niche types of media or publications, that address particular audiences. And if they're online, they're not even going to be bounded by geography, right? Because the internet goes everywhere. So knowing your audience is more of a challenge now. And audiences are far more fragmented, far smaller than what we had before. Let's just see what's coming in by chat, if I can. Just trying to use my shortcuts to move in and out of this. And must I really end the show in order to go see what people want to say? Let's just see. Hopefully this is worth it. Streamers? Chat, good stuff. Let's see. Where are we? Yeah. Oh, there it is. I got a tab open. Thank you. Yaya's here. Okay. Araceli's here. Hey. Okay.
How you doing?
There we go. All right. So maybe we'll begin again. Play from that current slide. Oh, okay. Thumbs up there. Okie doke. So the way broadcasting is typically known its audience is through demographic characteristics. And a lot of research is still based on that, like your media ratings research and stuff. So by demographics, we're talking about groups of people distinguished by age, gender, race, education, relationship. Are they married in families or not? And so this is the kind of broad, not very detailed type of data that we'll get from a lot of media research, which is available to broadcasters if they, for instance, subscribe to the Nielsen service, the Nielsen ratings. That's the type of information that they would get that way as well. Or they can hire other marketing companies to figure that out. And then geographic information. So the idea here is that you're more likely to be interested in stuff that's happening nearby than far away. I mean, there's a global topics of interest, but typically when you're writing for electronic media, especially when you're starting out, you may not be writing for national newspapers like the Washington Post or the equivalent. You might be writing for a more local type of news outlet or a blog, or you might be producing videos for an association or a smaller organization. So geographic proximity is something to bear in mind, which is nice because we'll be asking you to report an original story in several different ways. And so we're not looking for you to report about the latest things going on in Washington, thank God. We never hear the end of that. We're thinking you're going to be finding stories that are closer to home, stories at City College that you want to report on, or stories in your neighborhood, or things that are going on in any organization that you're participating in. It could be your church, it could be your sports league, it could be all kinds of stuff. So in my view, in the current media environment, there's a channel for just about everything and everybody, because it's so fragmented and so specific. So in your writing, you'll want to understand that audience, but you can also often be a part of that, and so understand what people need. The other big thing that we learn from commercial media research about audiences, and that every media channel that can pay for it would be psychographic information. So this refers to their people's interests and attitudes, like what they bring to a story, and so that could be ideological. It could be of issue, for instance, if you're doing a public service announcement and you're trying to discourage people from smoking. You may want to know about some of the psychographic aspects of your audience, what they believe in, what kind of values they have. If you're starting up, if you're going to compete with Fox News or something like that, as the Sinclair Broadcasting Corporation appears to be about to do, then you know that you're going after people with a certain set of values, interests, beliefs, and that can be researched through psychographics. That's what they call that. And another thing that companies and people often do just to keep this kind of manageable and human is they might personify their audience. Like they might say, well, we're programming for, they even sometimes will make like a little fictional character. This is Jane. She's our target audience. She's 33 years old. She has a 2-year-old child. She works part-time from home. She has a degree from a state university. Her husband and her together make about $100,000 a year. They vote Democrat usually. They buy every week diapers, baby formula, and they drive a 6-year-old Toyota or something like that. And that would be the personification. Jane becomes one of a bunch of, characters kind of that, that programmers or even writers are going to think about when they do that. So I just have a couple of quick local examples. It's nothing as quick, it seems. This screen refreshes faster than mine. I'm sitting over there. So let's see here. Again, I have modules open somewhere. Feel like. What is that? Oh, sorry. I'll get my navigation down. Where are we here? How local media companies know their audience. What does the San Francisco Chronicle tell potential advertisers about its audience? So one of the unfortunate things is you have to pay for a lot of this data, like a company like the Chronicle or a television station or something. So they don't always make it, it's not freely available. Like you can't just go to Nielsen and find out, what the audience is for a particular thing. So it's hard to find good stuff necessarily. But here, the Chronicle needs to pitch its readership to anyone who wants to advertise in the Chronicle, right? So they will, at least release some of what they know about their audience. And so, the Chronicle is part of Hearst, and they have both the print newspaper and the website, sfchronicle.com, sfgate, and they have a number of other outlets that I didn't even know about. So they're selling for all of those. And now they're going to, as we step through this, they'll tell us things about, okay, the median household income, how many people are available through sfgate, through the Chronicle as well in terms of their subscriptions. And that used to matter a lot more, but now every newspaper is trying to address a larger audience. And so the link is up there to that, but again, they break it down. Here we go with the demographics, right? We said demographics, gender, age. We talked about family structure as well as part of that. Education, household income. So these are all, obviously if you're talking to advertisers, you're going to say, well, we have an affluent audience. They've got enough money that they can buy stuff, So that's something that you could learn about them. And what else have we got? Oh, this one's interesting. What does KQED tell the independent producers of television documentaries and such? How do they define their audience? You can find that in there too. So what they're talking about here is if you're interested in submitting documentary projects to KQED, hoping to get them on board as a funder and a broadcaster eventually. But something like this, does it leverage our Northern California location? So what that means, they're asking, we talked about the importance of geographic location because KQED is located here and we have a particular set of interests and issues. They want to know that your project actually deals with the kinds of things that their audience is interested in. So geographic location is part of it, and just the importance of knowing an audience. KQED is saying right up front, does it fill a perceived audience need? So once you get to know who your audience is, you're thinking, okay, what do they need to know? Because if I spend all my time writing stuff that they don't need to know, they're not going to be interested. They're not going to read it, and I'll just be writing for nothing, right? So it's audience driven. That's why we need to know who the reader is. And as you can see, they're asking producers, does it have a defined target audience and size? So if you're writing such projects, which I know some of our advanced video students are in the position to go out and make these kinds of documentaries and stuff. And other values, does it expand audience diversity? Is, that's an interesting issue too. For our or KQED's audience, that's an important plus. It may not be an important plus for Fox News, and I don't have an equivalent document as to how they view their audience, and so on and so forth. This is other interesting stuff here, which is less about knowing the audience and more about, basically the difficulties of launching a project like that. And I had one other for you. Podcasters, because we're all interested in podcasting. Oops. Oh, God, I had to download that. What's that going to open it? Fair enough. So this is actually from Nielsen. So they do the market research and stuff. But this is interesting. Just recent research on podcast audiences. First on podcast content. But yes, so Nielsen is, we all know the Nielsen ratings, right? So I see Carmen smiling away there. It's like, why the hell bottled water, right? What does that have to do with broadcasting? Well, it's the structure of all of this as a business is that, it's supported by advertising and sponsorship, which is a form of advertising. And so a company like Nielsen, although we know that they're, they do the ratings, so they know who's listening, how many people, they do the demographic information. But Nielsen is part of a whole marketing, a broader marketing company, which I don't know the name of the company. Anyway, they integrate consumer data as well, basically. Their business goes into even like getting cash register data from big stores like Walmart and Target. The dream in the media business is that you could advertise to a group of people, with a defined group of people, and then track them through their purchasing and see if your advertising actually influenced them to buy something. That's the kind of a circle that every media company would like to make. So in understanding the audience, Nielsen will make available to like a TV station or something, or a podcast network. They'll say, okay, you need to sell advertising, you need to sell sponsorship. So what we're going to tell you is that you've got this audience, affluent, educated people. They've all got smartphones. They're consuming this, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll also let you know that that particular group of people buys bottled water, so on and so forth. I mean, they break it down depending. So that audience spends what on sports and recreation, on arts, on music, on comedy events, kids and family and stuff. So they will try to break it down. And of course, this will influence writing and the choice of topics and stuff, but it's also like a sales tool. It's like, well, our research shows that, the audience for this podcast buys more salty snacks. And so then you can go to salty snack makers and say, would you like to sponsor us? So that's it. One of my favorite podcasts is sponsored by a mattress maker. What does that tell you, right? I don't know, but I like to listen to it to put me to sleep at night.
And like all of them have Me Undies.
Is that right?
Yeah, most of the podcasts I listen to have a code for underwear that's like $25 a pair. But I mean, I'm not buying $25 a pair of underwear. So
Right. Oh, is that one of those things like where they send you a box of underwear to your house every week or month or something,
It's
and
just,
then
It's
it's
just
just
expensive
really awesome
underwear.
underwear. I literally threw away Lululemons after I got them because Lululemon just didn't cut it anymore.
Kyle,
I'm not even kidding.
now you're escaping to
They'll change your life.
go change your underwear, Kyle.
Audible, there's one.
Yeah, Audible is the other one.
Sponsors that are sort of everywhere. Yeah. Well, Audible, there's a nice link there because it's kind of an audio thing. Anyhow, so that's how big media gets to understand its audience, and those are just a couple of examples to sort of prove the point that there's demographic information out there to help you understand your audience and their concerns, again, a lot of it's for advertising, but a lot of it is also just, for this particular channel, it might be interesting, given that there's lots of, young parents there. You're going to start, crafting content which might appeal to them, based on what you know about them. So that's the point there. Let's see here. If I click this, is it going to take forever? Oh, no, not bad. Cool. So key questions, this whole idea we're serving the readers. What do they want from me? So how do they want it? And then does the audience change over time? Is it changing over time? And you see that. So let's see, we're at 2:05 here. I'm just seeing how much time we have. In terms of chapter content, we're getting into this other idea of, what's of use to your readership. So right now the book is being very broad. When we write, news, we'll be more dealing with what we know to be typical news values. But here in this first chapter, they're giving us some ideas of just ways of thinking through what will interest your readership as you write. So, yeah, the short term here, FOCII, these stand for some just shortcuts as to what it is that attracts audiences. So number one, the first one, F, would be fame. So people are likely to be interested in famous people. I guess you have to admit, when you go online, what do you see, right? There's just so much celebrity stuff, like everywhere. Even at the bottom of, you're reading about something else, recipes, but there's always those links to like more celebrity stories, Look at how they look now. 10 celebrities who will make your jaw drop. You ever click on those? Clickbait. Ah, yeah. Clickbait's something you want to avoid. We know clickbait is, is stuff that just gets you clicking, but if it's crap, if it's not worth the click, people won't go for it anymore. But yeah, fame is, if you can link your story to someone famous or something like that, or if you're actually writing about that stuff, which there's no shortage of it. And look at that. Fame falls into two main categories, extended period or a limited amount of time. So I guess the limited amount of time speaks to the internet's ability to just have trending topics, Let's see, actually, allow me to digress for a sec, but.
Like hide your kids, hide your wife.
No, we're thinking more about trending celebrities. If I could just see.
That guy was definitely a celebrity because I care about him deeply.
Who's this?
The guy who was on the news, there was, I guess, some rapist in the area, and he on the news said, hide your kids, hide your wife, and it got made into like a meme and like a song.
How'd you kids?
Really?
If you Google it, we will know all the words.
Got you. Well, so what is it? Hide your kid?
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Let me just put that in there. Hide your kids. Let's have a look at this. Interesting. Huh.
He was from like
August 28th.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Well, that's kind
The
of
song
old.
is very catchy.
Let's. But I'm still confused. Are we talking about a song? Or are we talking about a newsworthy topic?
pretty much a
It's a meme.
It's not a song. It's a news clip.
A catchy song.
Okay. Our point was when we were talking about fame, I think we were talking about famous individuals. Who's just peaked in the public consciousness recently? Just a name.
What are you on game?
What? Peeped in the what?
Peak, like just who's everybody talking about like recently?
Black China.
Jon Snow? All those.
Cardi B?
Sorry?
Cardi B?
How do I spell it? Let's
C-A-R-D-Y-B?
C-A-R-D-Y-B.
C-A-R-D-I-C. I don't even listen to it. C-A-R-D Cardi B.
And then the letter B.
Well, there we go. That's a significant spike. So what happened on between August 13th and 19th? So what we're showing you, and it could be anybody we plug in here, but thank you for that, Cardi B.
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, that would be probably pretty sustained, right? Okay, let's look at that, right? Well, let's just stick with this because the idea I just want to show you, this is called Google Trends. And what this is this is free. So this is a representation of the searches that are done on particular search terms, right? So in this case, we entered a famous person's name. And you can see it's kind of peaking up here. So it's really it's interesting. Sometimes you'll see like a real pattern of somebody doing something and boom, it'll peak and then it'll go down again and boom. So Google Trends this is again, what they give to us, the public, for free is really limited. But in online publication, there are souped up versions of this, including one offered by Google, which just basically shows you what are people searching for. And that some kinds of online writing are so dedicated to solving that short-term thing as fast as possible because it's all about getting people to click to your site, right? That editorial, the choice of stories and stuff is virtually driven by something like this, basically. People looking at trends and finding out, well, what is it that everybody is searching for?
I have a question about the numbers on the side.
Uh-huh.
Are those percentages?
That's a good point. That's something I couldn't answer right now. Let's just dig in right here for this. Someone died over time. So what are these? Let's try to find out. Search interest, news articles.
Especially when someone dies, someone famous.
Gotcha.
They
Yeah.
start looking around a lot.
We would have to look this over a little more to find out exactly what this is all about. You can see down here, news articles, actually 282 cumulative news articles, but I don't know exactly what these
Those might be fresh published.
published articles.
Yeah.
Really?
The new one, like, because it's relative to just that date. So at 1 p.m. on that date, there were 100 articles that it pulled up on that search.
Interesting. Okay. And how about actual? Well, rather than asking you guys, but does anyone know whether? See, yeah, okay. Trending queries is so. What are these like? 100 is 100 like. Is the rest a percentage under 1 or something? Don't know. Don't want to get too into it. Yeah, I could interest over time. Here we go. Question mark. What does it mean? Numbers represent search interest relative to the highest point on the chart for the given region and time. A value of 100 is the peak popularity for the term. A value of 50 means that the term is half as popular. Likewise, a score of 0 means that less than 1% cared about it. Okay, so what that means is, given the place and the scale, whoever got the most interests becomes top, and then after that, you're looking at a percentage underneath it. That's interesting. And the other thing you can see also is that they have all this geographically as well. So some parts of the country are more interested in things than other parts. So this can be interesting to play around with, but as I said, some online publications that are really driven entirely by, we need clicks, so we need just to give the readers what they want, are looking at this type of trending data and, choosing, okay, on our homepage, we're going to have these 4 stories because this is what's trending highest in the area that we want, So it gets pretty, I find it just fascinating to see how all that works. Okay. Boom. Hard to believe it, right? You'd think that people are just sitting there making educated news decisions about what we need to know about, but and there are still some publications that provide that type of editorial function, but a lot of online writing is not that way. So,
Getting there, Malcolm.
sorry,
I'm getting there.
you getting to fame?
No.
No.
Just put out content that doesn't have anything to do
Well, I don't know. Not to digress further, but I was thinking, when you are sort of driven by reader interest, I'll just be interested to see what you write about and what who you feel your audience is and what their needs are.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting class for me.
Okay, I knew it would be, and I'm glad to know that. Another thing that attracts people is stuff that's out of the ordinary. So oddity.
That's the hide your kids, hide your wife guy.
Right? Because it's just so weird as a story. You go like, oh, okay. So oddity, conflict. Okay, so that's another one. And I got to say, again, I always bring in sort of KTVU, recordings of KTVU and stuff, but I'm just looking through this. And conflict, definitely, if there's any kind of, Chrissy Field this weekend, media heyday, media extravaganza, this whole...
It bleeds, it leads.
It bleeds, it leads. That's the cliche. Thank you, Jenny. That's so true, yeah. That's the whole idea that especially broadcast news is driven by, people's interest is piqued by conflict. And so the lineup of the evening news will be, somebody killed, some kid hit by a car, someone's broken into your home, and these kinds of things very often will attract attention. So I hope it's clear that we're not saying that just slavishly going after each of these things will result in good writing or responsible journalism or something, right? You can use this as an idea of how to attract people to what you're writing and thinking through what you want to write, but this can also be abused, and you can have just, fake news or uninteresting stuff, which is just, yeah. Immediacy. People want to know what is happening around them and at any given point in time, and they want to know before anyone else does. So that speaks both to writing about what's going on and writing about what's current. And if we have any time today, another thing I like to do early on is just think about the different media and how they provide information or entertainment to us. But like, which one do you think would have the most immediacy? And I'll get to you in a sec, Kyle, unless you have an answer for that. But which, given print, online, broadcasting like radio or television, which one do you go to? Online? Yeah.
For immediacy.
Yeah, for immediacy, because what we expect from the web is like the latest updated information, right? More so than any other medium.
Updated 6 seconds ago.
Hopefully, right? But also, as we talk about writing for the web, also carefully written so that even if it's not updated, it's 6 seconds ago, it sort of sounds like it's always in the midst of the story, even if it's a little behind the curve sometimes, because you don't always have someone 24/7, updating. Shannon.
I was going to say the Associated Press sends out a list of upcoming things. So the day before, they send a list to all the newsrooms on their wire service that say these are the famous birthdays and commemorations for the following day, and all those stupid things like National Ice Cream Day and stuff like that. So that's why everywhere you go, you're like, why are they all talking about National Ice Cream Day? Like, why the hell does it matter? It's because the AP sent out a bulletin that told them they're supposed to care about it because it's happening right now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at...
Shannon has such high journalistic standards, that's all. And you write, I mean, I love some of the stuff you've done in the Guardsman. So, but I was just thinking that, pity the poor working broadcast journalist who has to come up with stories every day, and there's really nothing going on that hasn't been covered. So they go to that list and they say, oh man, it's National Tax Refund Day. Let me do a story on that or something. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a way of making it more reliable because you're required. You can't just wait until you have a great story,
Make a great story.
Sorry?
Make a great story.
Make a great story? Well, that crosses a line for many journalists. We're supposed to witness rather than go out. Do you feel strongly about that? Or is that, do you feel like, would you see yourself as like an interventionist or activist type of writer, journalist or something? Or?
Partially. Partially. Because I'm African American, and there's a lot of things that go on that I have to talk about that deal with activism situations.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of stuff that I like to talk about to make people get away from those things that drive them crazy. So.
Got you. Yeah.
it's kind of like both sides. Like being from the hip hop culture, it's like I have to stand up for our rights, right? But then I have to make people party too. So sometimes I make a story from happiness because I need to like get away from the negative things that people see on a daily routine and create a great story to make them feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Where sometimes I have to deliver them a story that's live that makes them feel bad.
Right, right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also, whether it makes them feel bad or not, it informs them about exactly what's going on.
Right.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So I see you doing several different types of writing there. Some more journalistic, some more activistic. That's not a word for sure, but you know,
Right.
there's nothing that stops you from doing all of it.
Well, that's kind of why I came back to this class, because I realized that I need to learn more about what I'm doing to be able to do what I'm doing right, whether I'm doing it right or wrong.
Cool. Well, I hope we help, but we certainly don't want to discourage you from just doing it. So, go. Kyle, did you have something you were saying? Or no? Purple. I prefer yellow sometimes. Okay.
I'll raise my hand if it comes back.
Gotcha. No worries. Okay. Immediacy. And well, hang on. Sheila's coming on in too. So we'll have Sheila in. Hi there. We have a couple of folks who also, like Grace, tried to add the class and somehow couldn't do it with my ag codes that I gave them. So I was.
Are there any prerequisites for this class?
119.
119 is a prerequisite?
It's just when you try to register, it gives off like a C, like it's closed. So it doesn't even give you to take you to the window where you need to enter the address.
So what we did with Grace was we actually put in the CRN, and then it said you need an authorization code, and then we put in the code, and it worked. So if you're still having trouble, you can come to my office after class, and we can try doing that.
Okay.
That'd be Ryan and
Two
Ishida.
people? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Good,
So
I'm glad
sorry
I
to
stopped by.
hit you with that when you
that's
walked
exactly
in.
why I'm here.
Okay, cool.
I'm Sheila. I'm the department chair. I recognize some of you. That's fantastic. And there's others that I don't recognize. I wanted to just extend my welcome for you to come to my office across the street in the Arts Extension Building anytime. I'm there. I do go to meetings and stuff, but when I'm there, I keep my door open. You're welcome to stop in and talk about any classes you have questions about for next semester, what certificates you might want to earn. We have, I've posted them and you can take a look. We have a list. We have certificates in video, television production, broadcast motion graphics. We have sound recording and live sound design. We have our convergent media production certificate. Mm-hmm. That particular certificate is actually
Awesome.
deactivated for this year only because of a mistake in the administration. But it's a 50-unit certificate, so you should, if you want that certificate, you should continue to work on it, because next September it'll be back on the books and you'll be able to get it then.
What certificate?
It's called Convergent Media Production, and this class is included in it. It's actually taking all the different types of media and telling your story across platform. It's kind of a branding, marketing, but it's also used for journalism and activism as well. And so if you're interested in that, stop by my office and we can talk about it.
I was just gonna say, if you're interested and you're like talking to a counselor about trying to do it, just suggest to them to go back to the 2016 catalog, because it's still there, and that's how
Exactly.
the veterans did it for me. They just went back and registered me in it through the 2016 catalog and then updated my plan for 2017.
If you were here in the spring, then you have grandfathered rights to earn that certificate anyway. So, and then if you're here next September, then you also can earn it then. So nobody can earn it in just 2 semesters. So we're not really, it's inconvenient, and I'm sorry that happened, but don't let it stop you. We have a transfer degree if anybody wants to transfer to San Francisco State's BECA department, Broadcast Electronic Communication Arts, or any of the other communications departments up and down the state. It's not just BECA. We always talk about BECA. Dr. Cecil teaches there, so we have our great inroads there and really good collaboration with that department. But there's also Cal State Northridge, there's Humboldt, San Jose, lots of other community or state colleges that you could transfer to. Yeah.
Is it required to have the AAT to go into the Becca program?
No.
Or can you just take the 3 prereq courses?
That's correct.
Okay.
So a transfer degree is an AA degree designed on the state level that kind of it forces community colleges and state schools to agree on what courses transfer. There was a lot of problems historically where students were going off to state and they were saying, oh, this doesn't count, this doesn't count, this doesn't count. And students who thought they might be a junior maybe still had another whole semester to go. So this is a way to clear things up. The interesting thing about the transfer degree is you're only taking 18 to 20 units in our department. And most people want to take more than that. So you can get the transfer degree and still take other courses. But the transfer degree is really just our basic, our foundational courses, and then all of your gen eds, your humanities and social science stuff, and all that stuff. We have a foundation certificate that I wanted to, the reason I would like to come and talk to everybody the first week of classes is because we do have the foundation certificate. You're in the one class that's only offered in the fall, so you either know about the certificate already or you're lucky, because the writing class is included in the certificate and it's not going to be offered in the spring. So if you're in any of your other classes and you're talking to people and they're saying, oh yes, I want to get that certificate, in the next few days, they probably still could add this class if you let them know they need to have this, or else they could take it next year. Or maybe we'll offer it in the spring if it's really popular. We don't know yet. So yeah, I really just wanted to come by and say hi. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We did have some space available in some intermediate audio, advanced audio classes that we were allowing people to sign into a little early if you want. So if that's something you're interested in, you probably should talk to me right after your class. Come on over to the office and talk to me. The one is Pro Tools. Actually, you can't take that one. It's offered now. But the Saturday sound design class, 10 till 3 on Saturdays for the whole semester, and it's BCST 126. And if you have some digital audio experience, and you're taking 120, then you can take that class at the same time. Usually 120 is a prerequisite, but you can take them concurrently if you feel like you have the time to really put in the work and be successful. If you want to do that, come to my office after this class is over. Is there anything else?
Oh, I think that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
fun. Carry
Thanks,
on.
Sheila. Oh,
So what I was going to say from the last slide about the immediacy portion of getting out information is, I feel like, or I want to know if you feel the same way, but I feel like immediacy has also kind of been a problem with putting out good content, because the idea of being the first to put out the content has kind of created an issue with creating decent and well thought out media.
yeah, sure,
Just trying to be the first.
sure.
I think if you don't
Takes
follow
time.
journalistic ethics, that does happen. But if you're a good journalist, you don't put out stuff immediately just because you have it. You know that you have to vet it. You know it has to go through certain channels before it can go up. But there are, because of the proliferation of people using Twitter and things like that, there are people who put out completely inaccurate information. And they're the first to do it, so yay for you, but you're wrong.
Yeah. Next week we'll talk about fact checking. Actually, there's good stuff in the second chapter. But yeah, it takes time. So to be a good journalist, sometimes you can't maybe be first, But there's also, as Shannon was saying too, there's just, unfortunately, the readership, the audience, in a way we have to educate them a little bit about what they should actually be listening to or watching and believing in, It's kind of like now that there are so many news outlets, people have to be a lot more savvy about, the likelihood that what they're reading is actually true. I mean, we'll get onto this next week because it's such an important topic right now. I wanted to spend more time on it than we usually would. But yeah, you two are not contradicting each other. You're simply saying that, yeah, it's, in order to make sure that you're being right or being factual as best you can, it takes time sometimes. And there's a set of things that you can do, to ensure that. And a lot of people who jump in and are writing for the media maybe aren't as aware of those things as they should be. And audiences as well need to be kind of coached a bit. It's like, does this really sound true? I mean, and where did you read this? And, you know, is there just one site on the whole internet which is reporting this? Or, you know, is there, and who's actually reporting that? So we can see, hi, are you registered in the class?
No, I'm not.
Oh, interested in adding? Okay, I can talk to you. I can just give you the code anyway, because I have to run at the end of class. But we can talk at the start of next class. Gotcha. Well, just to finish up on the FOCII thing, you know, fame, oddity, conflict, immediacy, and impact. So impact, finally, is people are going to care more about what they're reading if they can see how it directly affects them, you know. And so, well, here it says you could do that with numbers. You might be able to tell a story about how impactful something is because there's such a huge economic consequence or whatever, or maybe it affects a huge group of people, so really a bunch of them. Qualitative impacts, it's more looking at, okay, you know, it may not affect a huge number of people, but it may have a profound effect on a few people, you know, and with that's going to attract people's interest as well. Yeah, Nick.
What was O again?
O was oddity.
Oh.
Yeah, think space oddity. It's the oddity. Yeah. So these we could tackle sort of maybe, I don't know. I had a couple of things I was hoping to do, but discussion was better than those things. But maybe we should just go through a few more of these or whatever. These last few slides are pretty common sense in terms, again, of framing the information that you're giving to the audience or the questions that you're trying to answer for them in a way that emphasizes to them why this is important, why they should care. So you're kind of selling what you've got as you give it, you know. So the key need here for an audience like value, they need to know why something matters. Otherwise, they're not going to take the time to read it. So you've got to perhaps show them how this is really going to impact them personally, you know. And so one of the things that I wanted to do with you that it's just going to take too much time is the California State Legislature has a calendar, just like Shannon was saying. The AP has a calendar of events. Our, you know, state government has a calendar as well, which is the key votes that are coming up on bills and stuff like that. Daily, they publish all of that. So if your beat was, you know, California politics, your beat is like your focus of interest, you know, you would be monitoring that document to see who you needed to talk to about on that day. And the thing that I was just thinking about was I just wanted to run through something that was happening today and ask you, well, let's say they're voting on, you know, a change to an education policy, which would, I don't know, take $100 million from California state colleges in the next 5 years or something. So let's say that's not happening, okay? But I wanted to go in and find you some real news, but here's my fake news for you. So given that, okay, they're going to vote on that today. How could you make that, you know, how could you make that pertinent? How could you show the value of that to your readership? You're writing up this story. How would you go about doing that? You could just say, state legislature today voted for, you know, $100 million reduction. Yeah, Corey?
Some of the things that they'll be losing as a student attending one of these schools, you know, faculty or services.
That'd be interesting. Okay, so get more specific and interview people about, you know, where those budget cuts might first impact. Yeah, like. So yes, demonstrating the direct impact of the budget cut. Yeah, Nick?
Interview, yeah, like you said, interview students primarily, and interview staff. Like, how does it affect them?
Gotcha.
And what do they think of the legislature? What do they think of the voting the bill?
Okay.
People who made the bill.
But in your first couple of points, I think you're making a great point here that what you're trying to do is show a personal impact to the reader, right? And so both Corey and Nick are kind of going about this, I think, in a way that broadcast journalism would go about it. You would find somebody who's likely to be affected by this. Cuts are coming, and you guys are saying staff, faculty, or students. And so you'd find a student, and out of that person's, personal experience or whatever, then you could demonstrate the impact.
Hell, you can go further. Go like to high school or middle school.
Depending on who would be affected by the cut. And they might even indirectly be affected because it's like, I don't know if the school is going to be open by the time I graduate and I want to go there, perhaps. Now, the only thing we want to emphasize is it's also about your audience too, right? If you're writing for the Guardsman or something for City College, then it's going to make total sense that you interview a student who is part of the readership of the newspaper. Maybe if you are working for something different, for a publication for California lobbyists, or for the Bill Gates funded foundation that's trying to privatize education. What's the name of it again? I can't. Anyhow, a different audience. Yes, Jenny, do you know the name of it?
I don't, but as you were talking about this, I was thinking the community college went ahead and took on all the students that were locked out and basically abandoned by the for-profit colleges, giving them the accreditation for the classes they once took. And that was a really big help, but also a really big seller to bring on those students to
Gotcha.
the community.
Isn't that federally required when the for-profit school shuts down?
I don't
Oh,
know
yeah, we
that
were
it
looking at
is.
that possibility here. That was a nightmare scenario.
I know
I
that
know
they had,
you-
a lot of them had to get paid back
Yeah.
because they took out those loans from the government, and especially vets, for example.
But that's
All right,
not
okay.
necessarily a service of the school.
Can you guys continue this in about 6 minutes when we run out of time? Okay, because I just wanted to get through this little stack or whatever. And in fact, we could pick the last few slides up here next class. But what I just wanted to show you, and maybe we could try this just before we leave, because this is something that I recommend to you. So, and we're not always going to let PowerPoint drive our class to the extent that we did today. But hey, check it out. If we go back to the modules, where are we on here? The modules. I have to manage my tabs better. Yeah, exactly. Web quiz, okay? So for everything, in terms of, we are sticking close to the textbook for at least 7 chapters out of the textbook. So that's like 7 or 8 weeks we'll really be leaning on the textbook. And we got quizzes and stuff. So quiz questions are going to be drawn from the bank of questions that are made available to me. And all of them are up here, and each week there will be a web quiz that you can practice on, or that we could even practice on in class if you wanted sometimes. So I just clicked on the web quiz thing, and here's some sort of practice questions that, right? So let's see. When 2 or more individuals or collective units are seeking a goal that is mutually exclusive, something will arise. Kyle says D. Do we agree? Yes. All right, let's try it. Submit that question. Yes, you guys are right. The element of what helps you explain how the information you put forth will directly affect the readers. Impact. Let's try. JP says impact. Yes, you are correct. Blank perspectives measure the numerical reach of an impact.
Quantitative.
Quantitative, says Shannon. Let's try that. Submit. Yes. 100% so far, folks. Something impacts examine the severity of the impact. Qualitative, right? Let's see. Yes, correct. When an audience needs to understand why a story matters to them, this need can be met by showing the reader personal impact. Yes. All right, I'll let you guys do the rest of those if you want. But in fact, showing the reader personal impact, exactly what we were just talking about in our fantasy scenario of writing, of trying to take a dry kind of legislative thing happening in California and making it pertinent to readers. Do they care that it's being written? Not so much. But if you show them a dedicated student who's going to be hurt by these cuts, maybe even somebody who looks just like their kids, or then it's going to make much more of an impact on them. So good. So that's a start. Next week, like I said, we'll be we'll catch up a little on the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is largely about fact-checking, the importance of accuracy and stuff. And we will revisit there the issue we talked about just in terms of activism of making the story versus reporting the story, and just letting your readers know where you're coming from. I think is